Welcome to Hollywood Secrets Information. Behind the glamour, fame, and unforgettable performances of Hollywood's golden age, some stars were hiding shocking secrets away from the cameras. While millions admired them on the silver screen, their families often experienced a very different reality behind closed doors. In today's documentary, we're uncovering the disturbing stories of 10 Golden Age actors who were accused of abusing, intimidating, or terrorizing their wives and families. These accounts are based on biographies, interviews, court records, and statements from people close to them. Let's begin with number 10. 10. John Barrymore. John Barrymore was one of Hollywood's earliest superstars, celebrated for his remarkable stage presence and unforgettable performances. However, his personal life became increasingly troubled as his alcohol addiction worsened. Several biographers and people who knew him described a chaotic household marked by drunken outbursts, emotional cruelty, and destructive behavior. His marriages repeatedly collapsed amid reports of instability and intimidation. While some stories have been debated over the years, many historians agree that his addiction deeply affected those closest to him. Barrymore's extraordinary talent made him a Hollywood legend, but his inability to control his personal demons left lasting emotional scars on his family. His story remains a reminder that fame cannot erase the consequences of harmful behavior at home. 9. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn became an international icon through adventurous films like The Adventures of Robin Hood. His charming personality made him one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but off-screen his life was filled with controversy. Former partners and several biographies describe a volatile temper, excessive drinking, and emotionally abusive behavior during relationships. His marriages were often marked by frequent arguments, jealousy, and instability that affected everyone around him. Although Flynn denied many accusations throughout his life, historians continue to debate the extent of his behavior. What remains clear is that his reckless lifestyle damaged many of his personal relationships. The contrast between his heroic screen image and his troubled private life continues to fascinate film historians today. 8. Franchot Tone. Franchot Tone was known for his sophistication and elegance, becoming one of MGM's respected leading men. Yet his marriage to actress Joan Crawford was famously turbulent. Numerous biographies describe constant emotional conflict, manipulation, and explosive arguments that created a deeply unhealthy relationship. Friends and colleagues recalled a marriage filled with psychological tension rather than happiness. Although there are no widely verified claims of repeated physical violence, the emotional strain between the couple became legendary in Hollywood circles. Their relationship eventually ended in divorce, leaving behind years of bitterness. Tone's polished public image stood in sharp contrast to the emotional turmoil reportedly experienced within his family life. 7. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney entertained audiences for decades and became one of the most recognizable actors of his generation. Despite his incredible success, his personal relationships were often unstable. Several former spouses described controlling behavior, intense arguments, and emotional abuse during their marriages. Rooney himself later admitted that fame, financial problems, and personal struggles contributed to many of his failed relationships. His numerous marriages reflected the instability that surrounded his private life. While his achievements in film remain significant, his family history reveals the painful consequences of unresolved anger and emotional conflict. His story demonstrates that professional success does not always translate into healthy relationships at home. 6. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas was admired for his determination and powerful performances in classics like Spartacus. However, in later years he openly acknowledged that his intense ambition and explosive temper placed enormous pressure on his family. His autobiography and interviews describe periods when he became emotionally distant, controlling, and difficult to live with. Family members have spoken about the challenges created by his demanding personality, though they also noted that he worked to improve later in life. Unlike some others on this list, Douglas publicly reflected on his mistakes and expressed regret for the pain his behavior sometimes caused. His story illustrates how personal accountability can become part of a person's legacy, even after years of conflict. 5. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart remains one of Hollywood's greatest legends, remembered for classics like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon. Yet before his famous marriage to Lauren Bacall, some of his earlier relationships were reportedly strained by heavy drinking, jealousy, and frequent arguments. Several biographies describe occasions when alcohol fueled angry outbursts and intimidating behavior during domestic disputes. While accounts differ on the severity of these incidents, historians generally agree that his early marriages were marked by emotional conflict and instability. Friends later noted that Bogart matured significantly during his marriage to Bacall, creating a more stable home life. His story reminds us that even beloved screen icons could struggle with destructive personal behavior. 4. Richard Burton. Richard Burton's passionate romance with Elizabeth Taylor became one of Hollywood's most famous love stories, but it was also one of its most turbulent. Their relationship was fueled by intense love, public attention, and excessive alcohol consumption. Biographies and interviews describe explosive arguments, emotional volatility, and occasions when their conflicts became frightening for those around them. Both Burton and Taylor acknowledged that their fiery personalities often pushed their marriage to the breaking point. Although they repeatedly reunited after separating, the emotional strain ultimately proved too great. Their relationship remains a powerful example of how fame, addiction, and unresolved anger can damage even the strongest emotional bonds. 3. Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed earned a reputation as one of Britain's most charismatic yet unpredictable actors. Off-screen, however, his excessive drinking frequently led to aggressive behavior and damaged relationships. Friends, journalists, and several biographies describe a pattern of alcohol-fueled confrontations that created fear and instability within his family life. His unpredictable temper often overshadowed his remarkable acting talent. Reed himself admitted that alcohol controlled much of his personal life and contributed to many of his failed relationships. Although admired for his unforgettable performances, his legacy is also a cautionary tale about how addiction can harm loved ones as much as the individual struggling with it. 2. Sean Connery. Sean Connery is remembered worldwide as the original James Bond, but comments he made in past interviews about striking women generated decades of controversy. Those remarks were widely criticized, and Connery later said they had been misunderstood, though the debate never fully disappeared. His former wife, actress Diane Salento, also alleged that he had been physically abusive during their marriage, claims that Connery denied. Because these accounts remain disputed, historians continue to present both perspectives. Regardless of differing opinions, the controversy became a lasting part of his public image and sparked broader conversations about domestic violence and accountability in the entertainment industry. 1. Clark Gable. Clark Gable was known as the King of Hollywood and captivated audiences with his charm and confidence. Yet several biographies portray a far more complicated man behind the scenes. Former partners and historians have described controlling behavior, emotional intimidation, and strained relationships throughout different periods of his personal life. While many stories remain debated and not all allegations have been independently verified, those closest to him often spoke of the difficulties created by his dominant personality and demanding nature. Gable's extraordinary career earned him cinematic immortality, but his personal legacy continues to be examined alongside the stories of those who shared his private life. His case reminds us that public admiration does not always reveal the full truth about a person's character. Hollywood's golden age gave the world unforgettable movies and legendary stars, but history also reminds us that fame should never excuse harmful behavior. These stories encourage us to look beyond the glamour and remember the experiences of those whose voices were often overlooked. If you found this documentary informative, please like, share, and subscribe to Hollywood Secrets Information for more fascinating stories about classic Hollywood's hidden history. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.